An old man was walking down the street when his coat accidentally brushed against the handlebars of a motorcycle parked near a local bar. It was a simple, innocent mistake, but the biker didn't see it that way. He didn't care about the minor bump. What he saw was a frail old man, and that was enough reason for him to act. Without a word, the biker struck the elderly man across the face with one harsh blow. The impact knocked the 84-year-old veteran to the pavement, his hand still gripping the bag of bread he'd just bought. The crowd in the bar didn't budge. No one took out their phones, and no one stepped forward to help. But something was different about this old man. He wasn't just anyone. He had a history that went far beyond what anyone could see. It wasn't until 30 minutes later that the silence was broken in a way no one could ignore. Suddenly, the sound of helicopters filled the air. The sky seemed to pulse with the thunderous roar of blades. A military Black Hawk helicopter swooped in, landing right in the middle of the street, followed by soldiers in tactical gear pouring out onto the pavement. It was clear this was no ordinary man. This was a father, a veteran, and a soldier's father. Someone was watching. Most people walked past Ray Johnson without a second thought. At 84, he was a familiar figure around town, wearing worn boots and an old, patched-up jacket. Every Thursday, he shuffled past the same bar he'd passed for over a decade, never asking for attention. A retired Army mechanic, Ray had served in 3 overseas deployments, earning 2 citations. But now his body didn't quite work the way it used to. On this particular chilly morning, Ray stepped out of the local deli with a paper bag under one arm. Inside was a loaf of bread, some cough drops, and a postcard he meant to send to his grandson at the military academy. Across the street, a group of bikers were hanging out in front of the bar, their bikes polished and gleaming. But Ray didn't care about them. Noise didn't bother him. He'd heard much worse in places where silence was the real threat. As Ray passed by, his coat brushed against one of the motorcycles, nudging it slightly. Ray stopped immediately, turned around, and held his hands up. "Sorry, didn't mean to touch it," he said with a smile, explaining the accidental bump. But the tallest biker, standing in the group, saw it differently. Without a word, he struck Ray across the face. The sound of the slap echoed off the brick buildings. Ray hit the sidewalk softly, his hand still clutching the bag as it tore open, spilling the bread into the gutter. The laughter from inside the bar never stopped. No one moved. No one offered help. People kept drinking, watching, and ignoring what had just happened. Ray didn't cry out. He didn't shout. He just slowly sat up, one knee trembling, face red, and started picking up the pieces of bread from the ground. His cheek burned, but he didn't touch it. Instead, he gently placed the dirty, torn bread back into the bag, as though it still mattered. The people walking by didn't stop. A few crossed the street to avoid looking. A waitress peeked through the window, but that was all. The biker who hit him went back to laughing with his friends, showing no remorse. But Ray didn't react. He simply grabbed his cane, standing up with difficulty, and slowly walked to a nearby bench, sitting down to catch his breath. His pride stung more than the pain. Back in 1970, Ray had pulled 3 soldiers from a burning Jeep. He'd faced bullets and bombs, but here, in 2025, he couldn't even get someone to offer him a paper towel for the blood on his lip. A young man walked by, earbuds in, ignoring him. Ray lifted a hand slightly, but the boy didn't even look. It wasn't sympathy he was after. It was proof he still existed. Inside the bar, the biker mocked Ray. "Damn old guy bumped my bike," he said, laughing. Ray's jaw tightened. He didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a battered cell phone, and pressed a single button. On the screen was a contact labeled Eagle 6. It was an emergency number he only used when absolutely necessary. Ray tapped the button and leaned back, waiting. 15 minutes passed. Ray sat on the bench, unshaken. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He just sat quietly, as if waiting for something only he knew was coming. Then, a low rumble filled the air. The ground began to vibrate. People looked around, some stepping outside, trying to identify the sound. It grew louder, becoming a deep, rhythmic thrum that made the air feel heavier. The bartender stepped outside and muttered, "That's not a truck." A helicopter appeared above the horizon. It wasn't a plane or a truck. It was the unmistakable silhouette of a Black Hawk helicopter. It descended rapidly, landing in a nearby open field. As the helicopter touched down, a black SUV screeched to a halt in front of the bar. Soldiers in tactical gear stepped out in perfect coordination, scanning the area with cold precision. One man stepped forward from the helicopter. He was younger than Ray, probably in his 50s, but his demeanor carried an undeniable authority. No swagger, no sunglasses, just strength and command. The man walked directly toward Ray, who looked up slowly, blinking once. He nodded at the man. Without a word, the man knelt down next to him. "Dad," he said, gently brushing the blood off Ray's cheek. "I got here as fast as I could." Ray didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His son, Commander Luke Johnson, was here now. The biker, still standing at the bar, slowly turned around as the soldiers in tactical gear began to surround the area. The biker's confidence faded as he saw the patch on Luke's uniform. U.S. Army Special Operations. The man had just slapped the wrong person. The street was silent now. The biker, once so smug, stood frozen, his smirk vanishing. Luke Johnson rose slowly, his presence commanding, but his hands were steady calm. He didn't draw a weapon. He didn't need to. The silence spoke volumes. He turned to the crowd, his voice steady. "Which one of you hit a veteran?" No one responded at first. Then, the biker stepped forward, raising his hands. "Man, it was just some old guy. He bumped my bike." Luke didn't flinch. That old man served this country while you were still learning how to spell your name. The crowd around the bar was silent. The biker tried to hold onto his bravado. "You military guys think you can just walk in and take over." Luke stepped forward, closing the gap between them. "I didn't come here to threaten anyone," he said, his voice calm. "I came here because my father bled on the sidewalk while cowards laughed." At that, a police cruiser arrived, lights off, sirens silent. The officers didn't seem bored or indifferent. They understood. Without resistance, the biker was arrested. As the police led him away, something shifted in the crowd. People slowly began to emerge from the buildings, as if waking from a spell. The silence hung in the air. Back on the bench, Luke returned to his father. He crouched down again. "You okay?" Ray nodded, offering a faint smile. "I've had worse," he muttered. The crowd around them began to change. A few people stepped forward to offer apologies, some with small gestures of respect. A young boy saluted Ray. A man with graying hair approached with a handkerchief, apologizing for not intervening earlier. The respect was overwhelming but quiet. It was real. The video of Ray's assault went viral, spreading across news outlets, and his story, Sergeant Ray Johnson, Gulf War and Kosovo vet, became national news. Finally, the man who had been invisible for so long was seen as the hero he was. The town honored Ray with a ceremony, not for medals, but for his quiet service. His son spoke about his strength, and Ray silently acknowledged the crowd's standing ovation. A few days later, the biker who had struck Ray reached out, seeking redemption. Their private meeting changed both men. Months later, a plaque honoring Ray was placed in the town. It read, "In honor of Sergeant Ray Johnson, a quiet shield between us and chaos." His legacy of quiet strength spread throughout the community, earning the respect that had long been overdue.